All right, welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. This is Daniel from BA Pumps. How you going, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Yeah,
I've been
good.
looking forward to this because I'm just telling you off air. I showed you some photos. I feel like your world is so unique and niche for us gardeners that we're so clueless. And I wanting to learn from this. You've got a lot of experience. I'm really looking forward to learning from. But before we get into that, just for those who are unaware, we're doing a series called Makers Month where we're interviewing a lot of different brands, giving them a chance to talk about their strengths, what makes them special, what makes them unique, what people can get excited about. And we're talking about BA Pumps. Now, it's pumps and sprayers, right? I keep saying pumps. It's BA Pumps and sprayers, right? But tanks.
Shorten it to BA, whatever. Yeah.
So would you like to give us an overview of what your business actually does? It's a lot of stuff, and it's a lot of very niche, interesting stuff. But would you like to give us an overview, and then people can, understand it a little better?
Yeah, well, we're probably what you call a small manufacturer in the ag spraying industry. So we build a lot of different, like a fair range of products, ranging from agricultural-based products through to turf-based products. And there's viticulture products, and so it's quite a wide industry that we build for. So we've got a head office in New Zealand, so we've got a factory over there that does the same as what we do here in Australia. We're based in Geelong, Victoria. So in New Zealand, they do all of our steel fabrication and make all the tanks, and then we ship the product over here via containers. Every 2 to 3 weeks, we'll get a box, and then we assemble it to suit the Australian conditions over here. So we've been set up in New Zealand for around 33 years, I think it is. And then in Australia, I've been set up here for 15 years. And we've been assembling and manufacturing here in Geelong for that period of time. We've also got a warehouse up in Toowoomba up in Queensland. That's where Greg, my sales manager, he's based out of, and he's been with me for 12 years and been doing it up there as well. So so we build a lot of, like you said, niche products. We are smaller, so we're a little bit more agile when it comes to fabrication and being able to adapt to people's needs. So we do build a lot of different sort of products.
And
different.
what we're going to look at today, for those who are interested, there's a couple of things. I think there's a lot of people who listen to this who are contractors or they're full-timers at a large area. So like let's say a cemetery or a school or an aged care facility or something like that. That's it's too big for a hand sprayer, right? But it's kind of so daunting to step your feet into what seems complicated. So many numbers no one's ever talking about. What KPA do I need? What flow rate do I need? There's 7,000 nozzles I could have. Like, how big is a boom? Why is this expensive? Why is this cheap? Like, is there a difference? And so the first half of this podcast, people, is just Daniel's going to give us a lot of just advice and general stuff on what makes a sprayer good. If you're the type of person who's doing different types of it's a commercial job. So maybe you want to do fire breaks or you want to do high-end lawn care on school ovals or that sort of stuff. We'll just cover the stuff that is for that, because I found that a lot of people who don't know end up buying some stuff that they end up regretting. And they might have got something else fairly cheap. It doesn't work out too much. And so, this is not going to be necessarily it's not going to cover necessarily the range of the entire audience, but I think it's going to be incredibly helpful for the few people who actually are really interested in this. And I'm really appreciative of you coming on, Daniel, because this content doesn't really exist on the internet. So when people find it, they're going to be like, oh my goodness, this is answering. I was researching for years. That's why I'm excited for this. So anyways, that was a good introduction. Let's get into it, eh? A couple of episodes ago, I asked if people would be interested in purchasing a lawn care package that I designed. I'd had a couple of messages from people asking for that. I didn't think there would be too much interest. There was quite a bit of interest. So I've made a package, but it's not just a spreadsheet version that I talked about in that other podcast. It's actually a spreadsheet and a 1 hour plus video explanation, going through every single little detail of the package or the program, and we go into exactly what fertilizers I use, exactly how much I apply, why I do that, how I think, how you would compensate for weather, what sort of wetting agents, kelp products, all that kind of stuff. When we mow, when we groom, when we aerate, different herbicides we use, everything is covered in that. If you're the sort of person who's interested in that, it's $73.50. You can blame the US exchange rate for that random number, but it's $73.50. On the Patreon, there's a link in the video description or the podcast description. And if you're the sort of person who loves this kind of podcast, you know that this whole series we're doing for Makers Month, it's the best way to support this is to jump on the Patreon and become a monthly member. There's a lot of work involved with these kinds of podcasts. I can't do it on my own, so I'm now getting people to help me with editing and things like that. And that comes straight from the Patreon. So if you're a Patreon, genuinely speaking, this podcast series is brought to you by you. I could not do this much work on my own. So thank you so much. Let's get back into the podcast. So what is the number one thing that you're seeing a problem with the type of contractor and the market that we get? People come to you and they say, I did this. What's the number one problem that you're trying to solve for this group of people we're talking to? All right, mate. So you're obviously dealing with a lot of different contractors, and they will from different varieties of work. But in the kind of lawn and garden scene, what's the number one problem that you're finding when people come to you and they say, I've got this bit of kit, it's not working, I did something wrong? What's the number one mistake that us uneducated people in this part of the industry are making?
Well, probably the biggest issue, and it's not just your industry, it's most industries, that people just don't flush their units out. They just don't rinse them out after use, and especially in your game, because a lot of your guys are spot spraying and stuff like that, and they're doing it repetitively throughout the day, so they don't want to rinse the unit out every time. So the unit ends up sitting there with chemical in it for forever.
I've got to fess up and show something. As soon as you pulled that up, you keep telling me, but I'm going to be on my phone looking like I'm disinterested, but I'm very interested because I've very recently made a really dumb mistake like this. So what are the stories that you're getting when people are coming to you saying, they're blaming, have they realized that it's their problem, or what problems are caused by not flushing?
No one likes to admit it, but it's like usually it's when they're on the phone, they ring up, my pump's not working. And that's probably one of our main things is we say, well, you've been flushing it out. And everyone will give you a pause for about 3 seconds and then go, yeah. So darn well that the pause means no, but I'm going to say yes anyway, just to make it sound
look professional.
Yeah, so it's that. And then the next thing is you say, right, have you checked the suction filter? And they'll go, pause. So they haven't done that either. They go, suction filter? As in question.
What is that?
What is that? So
that's my problem. I'm trying to find
for a fair while if you want me to. But yeah, there's a fair few out there. And a lot of people, especially in the lawn, like we don't have lots of lawn contractors like you do over in WA. It's a little bit different over here. We have like lots of, contractors, but not like flat out specialised blokes like you have. So everyone does make up little bits of rigs and stuff themselves and that. So a lot of times, we do. We have lots of
different special people.
Yeah.
And we're doing some funky stuff. I can't find it.
Similar to what you were showing me off air, but yeah.
Well, we can talk about my stuff off air because whilst I'm still looking for this photo to embarrass myself in front of as many people as possible, I made a rig, and my rig is pretty good. But I wanted to say this to people is that you don't know what you don't know. And I was trying to do something with as much research as possible on the internet and try and make something that was custom for me. And it took me so long. It didn't cost too much in parts. It was maybe $1,500 in parts. That might sound like a lot to some people, but it's not in this game. $1,500 or so in parts, but I changed out a pump. I made a custom stainless steel spray boom thing that clips on and off. And I thought about, no, I should say, I thought about everything, but you don't know what you don't know. And even after all that effort and all that time researching, I still look back and go, it's not quite exactly what I need. We're talking about that off air. But, oh man, I wish I could find this. Tell me another story, because it is ugly. It's my inlet. What did you call it? Suction inlet.
Suction filter.
Filter.
Yeah, so you won't have a suction filter on your unit.
I've got a
Did you put one
little.
on?
I got a little thing on the end of my hose that sticks at the bottom of my tank.
Yeah. And it's just crap because it can't get enough fluid into that bigger pump that you put on there. So, there's all these little things. Obviously, I know it. I've been doing it for bloody 20 odd years, so it's pretty simple for me. But most people, they don't put a suction filter on it. If they do, it's too small, or most of the time they just don't have one. And then it fills up the pump with all the crap that's in the bottom of the tank and goes into your valves of your pump and stops it from working. So that's usually one of the main things. Inadequate wiring. They've always got like the smallest wiring, or they change your pump out and then the wiring's too small for the bigger pump. It draws more amps. They never put fuses. No one ever put fuses in there. You get it and you go, where's your fuse? And no got a fuse. Yeah,
okay. So. I don't think I have a fuse.
yeah. So
I can't find it. This is annoying. Okay, I'll have to describe it. But so one day I was doing a job at the school, and this is a comedy of errors. I can't believe I didn't remember this until before we started recording, because this is only like 4 months ago too, right? So I've had several problems working at this school, and my rig, which I should show. Look, let's just put it on the screen. But my rig that I have is a custom rig. It looks sexy. If you didn't know anything about it, you would look at my rig and be like, this guy knows what he's doing. It looks like it looks good, right? But it's great at certain things. But anyway, I've been using it on an oval, and it's way too small for this oval that I've been using it at. I'll chuck it on the screen now for those who are listening. And here it is. There's my rig, right? So you can see how big that oval is and how small my rig is. I originally made this before I actually had this school contract, and I was doing a lot of commercial stuff, and I, wanted something that was just easy to ride around on, all that sort of stuff. I've got my nozzles there. They're pretty good. Works fine, kind of thing. Like, I'm not going to brag about it, write home about it, but it's been doing pretty good. One day, one of these nozzles gets blocked. Right, and I'm like, what has blocked this? And I just go have a look, and it's a little bit of residue because I haven't flushed out my tank. Right, now I emptied the tank of all the contents, but as you guys well know, that these little nooks and crannies in here, you don't quite get all the stuff out, right? So I thought my tank was empty, and my next application was exactly the same product. Right, so it was liquid fert to liquid fert. So I was like, I don't need to flush. It's not like I'm going glyphosate to something else. So I just left it as was. Little bits of solidified stuff ends up all through my nozzles, right? And so I've now got a full tank of 100 liters of liquid fert, but it also actually had Barricade mixed in with it, which is a pre-emergent, and a kelp product, and a wetting agent, right? And a little bit of blue spray dye. And so I've got this mix, which is very green. It takes me so long to clear this out, right? And I keep kind of having problems because there's still a little bit in there that I run out of time, I've run out of light to spray the job. And so I go, I'm going to have to come back on the weekend, right? And this is like a Wednesday afternoon or something like that. So I've left my solution in the tank, right? And you're probably, Dan, you're going, you know where this is going. But
yeah, I
didn't know where this is going because I was like, I've got 100 liters, and this is in June. No, it wasn't June. It was earlier than that. Maybe April or something like that. Anyways, the days are shortening. Yeah, it would have been April. Light days are shortening, and so I'm like, it's too small of a rig for too big an area. I'll come back and do it properly on the weekend. So I started doing it on the weekend, right? To get rid of my first tank, right? And mix it around a bit, whatever. And anyways, go to put in my second tank, nothing's working. I've now filled it up 100 litres again, and nothing is working. And I'm trying to work it out. And what ended up happening was a thin film of solidified product, like not solidified, but goopy product had sat on top of my sprayer. And as I got to the bottom, it kind of had agitated as driving, and so some of it had broken down. But there were some packets of it was like jelly, right, but thick and sticky, and it had completely encased the end of the hose, and it was disgusting. It because it was green from the barricade, or greeny brown barricade, the kelp, the blue dye. It looked disgusting. That's why I really wanted to find that photo, because it's really quite visual. And I need 170 litres to finish this oval. So I still didn't get the oval done. I did half the oval and had to come back on Monday because it took me that long to work out what my problem was, because I couldn't see the inlet hose because I already had 100 something litres, well, almost 100 litres in my tank. And it was just like, oh my goodness. So I'm happy to talk about those mistakes. But so you're saying that it's more idiots like us doing user abuse than it is necessarily buying the wrong equipment for the job.
Yeah, look, it's most problems. I don't like to say it, but it is most of the time is operator abuse or operator error. And I don't know what it is about sprays, but just a lot of people just don't know how to use them. So we spend a lot of our time just telling people how to use a sprayer. So and
Right.
it's easy for us because we do it day in, day out. So I always say that, and I say to people that work with me that, we've been doing it. It's the only thing we do. There's lots of people out there that are doing all this other stuff, and so. But it's a niche industry, and it's inevitable that people just have problems like that because they're just not. Well, you can't go to school and do an apprenticeship on spraying.
No, and like I said, 5 minutes ago, there's no video like this on the internet yet. There will be when this comes out. Not for Australian stuff. Or what should I say? I haven't found one for the Australian market that is about turf or garden care. You can get like the New South Wales Department of Agriculture. So this is how I've had to learn my stuff. Has fantastic videos on how to run a 6-meter boom off a PTO driven, 500 to 1,000 to 3,000 litre tank or whatever it is, and it's kind of irrelevant, but it's also kind of like, it's not quite what I need, so yeah. So, okay. User abuse. What other stuff do you see us making mistakes with?
Oh, well, there's, with the rates and stuff like that, people have trouble trying to work out what their rates are a lot of the time. Like, the rate that's on, they read the label. Well, sorry, they don't read the label because you say to people, what rate do you want to put out? And they've got no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then there's a dilution rate and the application rate, and, litres per 100 square metres and litres per hectare. And
Yep.
a lot of people have trouble working that out. Obviously I dabble a bit in me lawn care, turf and stuff at my place. So I know a little bit about it. I've learned a little bit about it over the years. Obviously, I come from a small country town with a broad acre agricultural background. So that's probably how I got started in the spraying industry, because I grew up in a small town where there was a large manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how come I got into it. But yeah, I don't know. I suppose people just don't get exposed to spraying a lot of the times, and when they're mucking around with something, or they might be a maintenance guy at a school or something, and they've got to spray the oval. Well, I haven't seen anything to do with it. Anyone can do it. You just got to do a chemical users course, but that, I think, is 2 bits useless because no one seems to know still anything about application rates or anything from that. But
no, I kind of feel that because I'm a licensed spray technician, right? And I feel that the course is very, it's more aimed at safety, right? And it's kind of like if they were to do a full course, it would take so long and cost so much that it would even be more prohibitive. And so a lot of people just give me the bare basics, and what they're trying to do is bare basics, here's how we don't, cause a chemical hazard situation, and how we can, do this safely, which makes sense. That would be the number one thing, because you prefer to break a sprayer than a human being, but you kind of, that's what my sort of experience was with that. And obviously, like I just said, 3-4 months ago, whatever it was, 5 months ago, I'm making these kind of mistakes for someone who's been licensed and doing this for a while, but mostly in the handheld stuff,
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to what's available on the market, in the marketplace too. Like, everything we build is all just good quality stuff. I don't build any shit. It's all just good quality stuff. And yeah, it costs you, but you get what you pay for. So I think, I've got a philosophy: you do the job properly. So, we don't put any of our sprayers out without air inducted nozzles. So they've all got air inducted nozzles, from the little Bowling Green sprayer that we do, the GK75, and then right up to our larger linkage units and stuff like that. They've all got low pressure air induction nozzles, so that you don't get any, minimise drift and stuff, spray drift and that. But there's lots of people out there selling just cheap crap, and it's got nozzles that are worth 2 cents, and you would produce nothing but a fine droplet. And if you read your labels, like, a lot of people don't read the labels, but if you read your labels, it'll tell you need a coarse droplet. So most of the nozzles that are out there that people are putting on these lower end stuff, they just produce nothing but a fine droplet. So
blows around. Is this what we're looking at here? The air
that's an AIXR, so that's a TJet product. Obviously, I sell TJet products, but that's a low pressure air induction nozzle, which lots of other manufacturers out there sell as well. But most of them out in the marketplace will be selling a TJet product of some sort usually.
So what is special about these? Because I also got to admit, I don't have these, and mine does blow around a bit. I've got blues. Yeah. I think I need reds. I think.
Yeah, well, that's only a flow rate based problem. Yours is.
Can I pause you there for a second? Because my thinking is, because I've gotten, so for those people who don't know, let's step real back. We're talking about TJet nozzles that are the sort of the fan nozzle, you might call it, or a fine, like, thin line that sprays out
flat
side to side.
Yeah.
Flat fan, there we go. Not a cone nozzle that you would get on a normal backpack sprayer. And there are different types different colors, which talk about different flow rates, which you need when you calibrate a sprayer. We will talk about that, people, but with the different colors actually mean different things. And I have got the basic ones, which I think that you're talking about, the very cheap, just standard short ones that we've got.
Yeah, well, that's what was out there. 20 years ago, that's all you had. Like, when I started in the spraying industry, you didn't. Well, it might have been. It was, say, the year 2000. It might have been late 99. I reckon I started in the spraying industry, and the main nozzle was an XR nozzle, which is what you would have. They didn't have. They didn't have.
That's what I've got. That's literally the exact nozzles that I've got on my sprayer, those blue ones.
Yeah. So they're just a standard flat fan nozzle that, 37% of your product is lost to the atmosphere at 3 bar with one of them, or 45 psi. So where if you use an air inducted nozzle, it's something down around 12%, one of those. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of people, that nozzle's, say, $15 and the other one's $7, but it's you get what you pay for. You get a better job out of the air inducted nozzle. They last longer. They don't wear as much. So there's lots of different things that the average person doesn't know. They look at the price and they go, "Yep, that'll do me."
Well, if we look at the price, they're half the price. The cheaper ones, at least half the price of the other ones, and this is a brand name product, right? You can get the cheaper rip-offs, eBay special, which you were saying is less than $1.
Well, they do. TJet do another one, which is a TP, which is worse again. Like, it's and they're it's just like, I just don't sell them. Like, I wouldn't sell them to anyone. I wouldn't sell an XR to anyone to put on there. We're a wholesaler, so dealers do buy them. But if I'm talking to someone, there's no way in the world I'd sell them an XR nozzle. No way. So,
okay. So again, let's just keep talking about my mistakes. I'm happy to learn this way. So
Yeah,
I've
that's all
got
right.
the wrong nozzle on. And do you know
Well,
what
I
I
wouldn't
did?
use it anyway. Yeah, I wouldn't use it. No.
But what I
wouldn't.
did is so when I was doing my math, so people who are brand new to all this kind of stuff, when you're making a sprayer, you've got to make sure that you've got enough pressure to feed the nozzles that you've got. And you might find what we would call a nozzle chart. And I'm just Googling this at the same time. And here's a nozzle chart. I don't know which brand it is.
Better go. You put in metric, nozzle chart metric, because
Yeah,
it'll
true.
be a
Metric nozzle chart. And I'll try and zoom in on this. And hopefully people can understand it in open image in new tab, and I can explain it as well. So what you end up finding is, oh my goodness, this quality is rubbish. I'm sorry, people. But look, you get the idea if you are listening and hearing there is these charts which will say you've got a green nozzle, yellow, purple, blue, red, brown, and this is how much pressure you need, and this is how much flow rate you need to run that kind of stuff. And if you or like this needs, well, you might explain it. It's like this is how many bar you need or whatever.
It's theoretical too. Like everything's different depending on how you've plumbed your sprayer. So the best way to check is always a jug and time it. But
Yep.
these are theoretical. That at this pressure with this nozzle, your output should be X amount of litres. So say if you've got an O2. At 2 bar, it's like 0.65 of a litre per minute per nozzle. So you can check your calibration of a sprayer.
Here we go.
That should be somewhere around it, depending on. I don't know who's done that one, but it's not.
It's not right.
It's really 0.65 of a litre. It says 0.66. So but anyway, it'll be close, but.
Yeah, that sprayer had a few extra wheat bix that morning. So.
Oh, well, some manufacturers are different. I'm going off with the T-Jet chart, which I know it's
the top of your head.
So, yeah. So it's really it comes down to how you've plumbed the sprayer too. That sometimes it can be a little bit different. So that's why you do always check it with a jug. But it's really you need this pressure. So let's say that O2 at 3 bar, which is 45 psi. That nozzle will put out 0.81 of a litre per minute. So, and then,
what I did is I had to upgrade my pump to get the nozzles I wanted, and I went down the path of going, well, let's get plenty of pressure, plenty of flow rate. I'll be fine. I did all the maths. I did all this, right? And I worked it all out, and I go, I want a blue one. That will get me my numbers, right? And red nozzles I might be able to do them, but maybe not. What I ended up finding, mate, is and my hose is the same size as my outlet all the way. I've just got one hose, right? So I'm not reducing anything. But the what I found is the flow rate, well, my pressure was way over the top. I can't remember what I've got, but I needed say 50 psi, and I got a pump that was 90 psi or something like that. And my flow rate was more than enough, probably enough to do the reds. And I was getting so much mist that I put in a ball valve in my pipe or in my, what do you call it? Hose.
In your pressure line, yeah. Yep.
And then twisted it a little bit until I found the sweet spot where I'd reduced my flow so that I didn't get so much mist. And these are the kind of things where I'm like, man, I thought I did a lot of work working this stuff out. I thought I spent hours and hours researching this and watching videos and trying to work it out because I wanted to make something custom. And I still get to the end and I'm like, man, it doesn't quite suit. Now, ultimately, if you look at the school oval, it looks great, right? But I know that it's just every time I'm doing this, it's not quite the perfect thing. And honestly, this would be a good lesson. Anyway, yeah.
You're sort of halfway there, but what you really need is a pressure regulator so you can regulate the flow. And then that pressure regulator diverts the flow back to the tank, not just divert. You're just trying to restrict the flow, but with a 12-volt pump, it'll just try and increase the pressure again, instead of if you send it back to the tank and divert the flow and then restrict the flow going back to the tank, it'll regulate a hell of a lot better than what you're trying to do.
Right.
Yeah.
See, this is all stuff I don't know. So it's what we're going to, here's the big picture, right? People, you're probably just better off getting a professional to do it. And if I was to think about the hours that it took me to do, and I did do this over winter when I had free time, but if I was getting paid to do gardening for the hours it took me to do this, I'd probably get worked out to be the same. Now, I was doing it at night when I couldn't garden. I'm just showing this to people as like, I'm trying to paint the picture that even I, after being a licensed spray technician and doing all this sort of what I thought was good research, and I'm not putting myself on a pedestal here, I'm just saying that this is above average from the people I talk to in the industry. I still know nothing, man. Like, I really don't. And so, look, I'm already, every mistake you've said, I've already ticked that box so far. So, what other stuff?
You're not on your own. Oh, I don't know. There's lots of different stuff. I see some pretty wild. So that's what I should have got you, giving you some photos of all the wild sprayers that I've seen in my time. That's what I should have got for you.
Maybe,
I've seen a few dodgy rigs out there. So yeah, but I don't know. There's always lots of different things, but yeah,
right.
I don't want to bag too many people out there. So
no, we can just bag me. That's fine. I'm putting myself out there. What? So we've talked about the most common mistakes, and we're getting. We're sort of covering those. I'm going to ask your opinion on some about 5 or 6 different topics. This versus this, this versus this, this versus this, and these are all the things that I've been confused on for a very long time. I'll get up a photo of a boomless nozzle, and so many people don't know what a boomless nozzle is. Have you got one there? Or you're reaching for your bottle. I thought you were reaching for a boomless nozzle. I've got one right here. But a boomless nozzle for people who are just listening is basically you've got a hose and the hose runs to a single point, and it doesn't have a boom, and it's got think about like a gear drive sprinkler, how it throws out a line of water nice and wide. This is a bad analogy, but or even like a fan nozzle sprinkler, how you got a 180 and it throws it out nice and wide. It's kind of like that, having a single nozzle that will throw out all the water nice and wide. I'll put a picture on the screen for those who are able to see this. Now, that is so cheap compared to here we go. Here's a good photo of a different brand, but you get the idea. So these things can go, 7 meters, 6 meters, 5 meters, depending on the brand that you get. And the thing is that it's so cheap. This is $185, right? For this little. This is a Sylvan ATV boomless nozzle kit, and I have no interest in bagging out Sylvan at all or anything, and I know that Daniel doesn't either. It's just that's the thing I happen to click on, right?
Yeah. So
I would look at that and go, why the heck wouldn't you just why spend 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 more? I mean, for 7.4 meters, it'd be a hell of a lot of money for some of these booms that you're doing. I can get up some photos like this guy here. Right,
Well, it's horses for courses, obviously, but yeah.
So why would we go in some cases for a boomless nozzle, and why would we want a boom? And I'm assuming that there's a lot of people who have cheaped out on a boomless nozzle because of the price difference, but then ended up regretting that with the results as well.
Yeah, well, it depends on what you're spraying. If you're out there just spraying broadleaf, so if you're just say you're doing an oval and you want to get rid of some capeweed, well, a boomless nozzle's fine for that. Like, it'll go out there and you'll spray broadleaf weeds, no problem at all. Or if you want to spray an oval with some liquid ferts, so, like what, in saying that you're putting out barricades, so you probably wouldn't want to put that out through that, but a boomless nozzle for spraying liquid fertilizer is sweet, no dramas at all. And a lot of people, we'll sell them to a lot of people for, let's just say, cleaning up around their yard and stuff like that. A lot of people will want to spray along fence lines and around silos, or if in a commercial application, if you're a lawn contractor and you had a yard that you looked after as well, spraying driveways and stuff, they're sweet for that, real good, or anything like that. They're really good fence lines and stuff like that. But, if you're in turf or any other sort of application where you were chasing some finer grasses and stuff like that, well, you can't beat a boom. Like the boomless nozzle's good, but they're not quite as good as a boom. And there are some cheap ass boomless nozzles too that I wouldn't use either, like those brass ones. I wouldn't use one of them. The distribution on one of them is very, very poor. They're old school. They're made years and years ago, and before drift was seen as a real bad issue. And so, I certainly wouldn't use. Not that I don't sell them, because I just don't believe that they work very good, so I don't bother selling them.
So if I was spraying my fence line with one of these, so I'm just going to try to get what is a 2 meter wide kill, got some glyphosate. Yep. There's going to be wind drift, and what you're saying
with that style,
So that's interesting, because that's another thing I didn't know. I wouldn't think naturally that there would be too much difference in drift between different brands.
That silver one's got high pro nozzles on it, which are a different style of boomless nozzle, but that works better than one of those brass ones for sure. Yeah, some of the figures that they quote there aren't quite what I would say they can do, but a boomless nozzle can comfortably do with two. That'll have two. That has two on it. Yep. Silver one, like similar to what we sell. They'll spray 5.5 to 6 meters comfortably with a 12-volt pump. Yeah, they'll be all right there. So, and they do a reasonable rate, but they certainly won't do
7.4 is what they've got there. Do you reckon? Maybe if you put it 4 meters in the air and give it a bit more.
Or put a massive pump on it, but that pump that's on that little spray there won't do that. But
no.
Anyway, like I don't. I'm very conservative, so I don't say that they'll do any more than they can. So. You hook one up to a engine-driven diaphragm pump. Our boomless ones that we have on the 12 volts that'll do 5.5, 6 meters. They'll do 8 meters.
Oh, okay.
But you got to have the flow and the pressure behind it to do it. And the nozzle's going to be set at a certain height, so it'll throw that far. But people don't want drift, so you got to try and.
Yep.
With those boomless, we usually set them up around 600 to 900 off the target or off the ground.
Yep.
And they throw low and flat, and they don't drift a lot. But those old school brass ones are pretty ordinary. I wouldn't use one of them.
That brings me perfectly into my next question: 12-volt pump or petrol pump? I've found for me that like 12-volt makes sense pricing wise, but I've always wondered as well, like. Especially if you go down, one thing we didn't mention about boomless is they often need a higher flow rate and come at some of those normal standard pumps you get on a sprayer. So I'll talk about the silver one that I bought. I bought a standard silver one. It was available at my local shop. That's why I got it. And I had to upgrade the pump immediately. And so, but even then I upgraded it to one that wasn't quite fit for purpose, and then you realize that when you start getting into the 12-volt pumps that can really handle a lot of pressure, it's kind of not too far off some of the smaller or cheaper petrol power pumps, maybe the 2-stroke ones that are available. It kind of crosses into there. He's shaking his head at me already, so we're touching a nerve. This is good.
Oh yeah, well obviously I don't sell them, but I've seen them out there, and those 2-stroke ones and that are just junk, like they are. And that's what shoots me a little bit about the industry, is that people are just happy to sell that. Well, I won't, because it damages my brand here. I don't want to damage my brand, because I like to sell something to someone and then they come back and buy something else, or their neighbour buys one, or someone they know buys one. So those little 2-stroke ones, they're actually a piston pump, so they're not even designed for spraying. And then most of the time there is manufacturers out there that use them, but they'll sit them up on top of the tank where a piston pump doesn't like sucking up, drawing up. Right. So really they should need to have a flooded sump, so they go down, but they're trying to make the sprayer cheaper with no frame, so they put them up on the tank and draw it out. So that's one thing that a piston pump hates for a start. and then they don't like running dry. So then, you're out spraying, you're spot spraying or whatever, and you're not standing next to the tank, are you? You're at the end of the hose reel, and you don't
Right.
know most of the time what's left in
No,
the
you
in the
don't.
tank. So spraying away, and then it runs out of fluid. Well, a piston pump doesn't like running dry, where a diaphragm pump, it doesn't worry you. But so you're sitting there screaming its head off too, because they rev like buggery, those two-stroke things. And,
Yeah.
so by the time you've walked back to the tank, it's buggered because it's been running dry for bloody 30 seconds and stuffed
Wow.
it.
Literally
So,
30 seconds is all it needs.
well, wouldn't it? They'd hate running dry. So
Oh,
this is
wow.
what it just shouldn't be used in the industry. But yeah,
Because
people sell them, and
fascinating. I was at Bunnings last night, and I needed to get completely irrelevant to this subject, but I needed to get a seal for my toilet because it's leaking, right? And down the same aisle, I thought, oh, this is funny, is some of the Bunnings transfer pumps, and I saw one of the Honda ones. Now, it wasn't for sprayers, right? But it was a Honda two-stroke one, and it was a transfer pump, so it's obviously supposed to be, cleaning out holes or something like that, they're filled with water, or I don't know what they're using it for, something on a water tank, or I don't know, something like that, right? And they were about, I think it was in the ballpark of 480, 500. And this is why it's kind of some of the stuff that gets us tempted, because you can easily pay, that same ballpark for a higher flow rate 12 volt. And that's why I was like, oh, interesting. Because once you get into, I'll put another picture on the screen. Editor Joseph is going to not be loving me right now for all the extra work I give him coming in and out. Oh, I zoomed in the wrong bloody bit. Oh, man, who invited this guy to the podcast? But if we zoom into there, you've got the Honda horizontal shaft engines. Motors. Everybody loves them. As a brand, fantastic stuff. They are incredibly expensive on their own. That's a big boy one. Should probably change to a sprayer that's not quite as large. That one's not, but you get the idea. There's smaller ones for different purposes, and
just a GX200. Yeah,
what was
not
well, but probably in your world, you're thinking, oh, it's not too expensive. But what would so let's say do you use 120s or 160s at all?
I use 160s. Yeah, I use 160s and 200s. To be honest, there's only about bugger all difference between the two of them cost-wise, but they have different ratings for horsepower. And we had Honda come here, because we only buy off Honda Australia.
Mm-hmm.
We had Honda come here, and then they tested all of our engines and pumps together as a package, so that we knew that we were fitting up the correct engine to suit. So that's another thing. Most people don't even realise that. But yeah, we had Honda come here, and they had all their probes and everything. We run the things for half an hour, flat stick, and all that type of stuff, just to make sure that we were matching the correct engine to the pump.
Right.
So yeah, we use 160s. I don't bother with the 120s because they're nearly the same price, and so I just fit bigger engines.
Yep.
And then the engine just above oil's more than enough, so you're not revving the guts out of it and that sort of thing.
It'll last forever. Those things do.
Yeah, and they do. I might have used the Honda warranty policy once in 15 years of thousands upon thousands of engines that I would have sold. So yeah, very good, bulletproof. I wouldn't use anything else. I don't use anything else. So.
Well, I might interest you in something slightly off subject, but I did a podcast with Gary from Greenworks Australia. I don't know if you ever heard about Greenworks. They're a massive battery brand, and they have released, it's not in Australia yet, but I was really curious about this. They've released a 83 volt horizontal shaft bolt-on replacement for mowers, and I was like, just a thought. I was like, I wonder if that would actually be suitable for sprayer applications. I don't know why you would want a battery one in certain applications, because petrol. But it's just interesting.
It would be, and Honda are working on something, but they haven't got anything available as yet. But we would be interested in it for the golf courses, because we make a few golf course sprays, and obviously they need to get out and spray early in the morning and not make any noise. So
yep,
we would certainly be we've looked at it, and people have asked us about, and we make a lot of 12-volt sprayers for golf courses to keep the noise down, but in the applications where they need to put on really high water rates, well, you can't do it with a small 12-volt pump. So, something like that we would be of interest to, because we could build a sprayer that's nice and quiet. And even in the bowls, we obviously make the bowling green sprayer as well, which is good for most of their fungicide applications and that. But there's a few blokes out there that we build another style for when they fish mouth on all of their iron on most of the bowling greens instead of putting it through the boom.
Fish mouth is a type of hose nozzle, so they're blasting it out of a big hose basically, which is not a very even application at all.
No, but when you're putting on iron, I don't know if you put much iron on, but it can stripe up going out through a boom, and you get a very different clientele at a bowls club that they'll see if there's something wrong with the green, they'll let you know about it. So I've got a mate he's a greenkeeper. Obviously, I met him through work many, many years ago, and he's helped me out a lot over the time, designing sprayers and stuff like that. So I get a lot of feedback off him, and he puts out his iron through a fish mouth just so that he gets a more even application of the iron, because if you overlap or whatever, it shows up like buggery on the bowling green.
I've had that problem too, so we can talk about that later, because I have already written that down, believe it or not.
Yeah.
This is just like Luke confesses every mistake he's ever made with a large spraying unit. The cost on one of these, let's say a 160, because I'm sure it's a little bit cheaper, and it's probably kind of in the ballpark of most applicators who are listening to this. They're not going to go massive, I would assume. But what would the cost on a pump, just the pump and the motor, so we can compare it?
Oh, yeah. So a little 30-litre one would be somewhere around $2,500, somewhere around that, $2,500 to $3,000, depending on the size of it. But
so that and then the most expensive 12 volts are kind of like 700. Is that right? Kind of in that range.
Yeah.
So there's a huge jump in price, which is why a lot of people will try and stay on the 12 volt kind of. Probably make
with a 12 volt with a 12 volt. As soon as you go up in literage, you go down in pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't get the flow, and the flow that they're telling you that the output is, say, a 20-litre 12-volt pump is at zero pressure. So if you got one and hooked it up with just two hoses and put it in a bucket, it will pump 20 litres with no pressure. But you put some load on it to exit out through some nozzles, it ain't going to put out 20 litres.
Yes, yeah.
So that's enough. The scale's linear, so it goes it just goes like that. So
here's something I thought about. This might be a stupid question, right? They say no stupid questions, but I try and break that all the time. You know how I said I replaced my pump, my 12-volt pump. So I have the old one, never used, right? It's a 6.8 litre per minute standard. You know this one, off the top of your head, right? And they're cheap. Yeah. And I was like, I haven't done this, but I was thinking, could you theoretically buy a second 6.8, put them side by side, 2 inlets, 2 outlets, and then put the outlets into the same so they converge together? Would that work?
Yes, it does.
Ooh, there we go. So it wasn't stupid then, was it?
It does work. I've done it many years ago when I used to work for TJet back 15, 16, 17 years ago. I worked for TJet in the tech support office, it's here in Geelong as well. But and I had to make just a demonstration rig, because we wanted to display nozzles and filters and all that type of stuff. So. But I wanted a lot of pressure, and we didn't have 12-volt pumps that had a lot of. You didn't have pressure and flow, because as I said, you go up in flow, it goes down in pressure. So I got 200 psi 6.8s, and I did exactly what you said, and it worked.
Right.
Yeah. So you just join the bigger suction hose, and they both sucked out, and then went through the pumps and then back into a T, and then one hose out, and it worked. Yeah, so it does work. It's a lot of mucking around, but it did work.
Well, I think that's a great option for somebody who might be on a budget but has a lot of time and go, well,
Yeah.
I can make myself, I'm handy, I can make myself a mount, I can do that. Because I was thinking about it and I was like, because I could get a second pump, I can't remember what they were at, like $200 or something. And I was like,
Well, the main thing you got to remember is amperage draw. So it'll
that's it.
draw
Okay, I was going to ask that too.
amps.
Kill the
Yeah.
battery, right?
Yeah.
Or like drain the battery if it's not running off an alternator and your engine's not full revs and everything. So I thought about this sort of stuff, and I was like, okay, I wonder if it's. That's why I thought it would be too dumb. I thought you'd be dreading too many stuff, or because the other thing is you kind of, so from the tiny bit I know, is you'd have to run them parallel, not in a line, right?
Yeah. So no, you don't run them in a line. No, you run them
side by side.
Run them,
so they each have their own inlet. So you wouldn't put one.
Each have their own.
Into
both have their own suction, and then you can join the two pressure sides together. Yep.
So I guess if you get stuck, people, give it a try, and if it doesn't work, don't blame us, right?
No. Yeah.
So
I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah.
What kind of applications then? So for that massive jump in price from say $500 to $800 for a higher end 12-volt to $2.5 grand for a petrol power, right? A lot of people, that pump is beyond their entire budget for a spray rig. Now maybe this would change their mind and they realize that the budget that they set, maybe they need to be a bit more patient and wait and get something that's good. But what applications definitely need a petrol pump, and what applications could you go a little bit cheaper on?
Well, again, it just depends on the size of the job you're doing, but most of it you'll get away with a 12-volt pump on most turf applications, small ones, because you're not doing a massive area. But when you're coming up against like a golf course, for instance, well, a 12-volt pump just isn't going to cut it. So you got to, because in turf applications, as you know, you need high water rates, and so with high water rates, you got to end up with a lot of fluid, and then it just snowballs from there. So most larger applications, you need a diaphragm pump driven by an engine. It helps. If you're spot spraying and want to, squirt a long distance, well, a 12-volt pump just can't do it. So because it just doesn't have the pressure or the flow. So when you want pressure and flow, that's where an engine-driven diaphragm pump comes into play. Yeah.
We talked about I'll move my questions around because you mentioned the browning or the striping of the iron, and when you overlap. Now, I don't have any GPS guidance. I don't have any foam indicators. So for those who don't, you might have seen this. You can get these additional pumps. They cost money. That pump foam to the end of your boom, and it drops it every 10 meters or whatever, depending on your speed, and you can see where you've been. So I have to go off wheel marks, right, or my stripes from when I'm mowing, and it's all by eye, which is why I was saying to you before, as soon as it gets dark, I have to leave because I can't see what I'm doing anymore. I can't just put some lights on or, hope for the best. And I've had it before where I've overlapped too much, and I've wondered if that was the type of nozzle I was using. And the other thing I've had, which is very interesting, is I've had wheel marks from pushing in where I've driven over fertilizer applications. My wheel marks have made darker spots where I've driven over. And so, two questions: is the darkness? Could that different nozzle change the staining? And then I'm really confused as to why some of your booms are at the back of the machine and some of your walk behinds, the booms at the front. So, yeah.
Well, with a walk behind, it's at the front mainly to keep the spray away from the operator as best you can. Like it's inevitable. You can't really do much. The wheels going over hasn't been a problem. Like I would have made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those little walk behind ones, and we've been probably even over 1,000. And no one's ever said to me it's an issue. So
do you think it's weight? Because on my setup, all up would be about 700 kilos with an operator on it.
Oh yeah, well that could be an issue, but it depends on the product. With iron, definitely, I put iron out on my lawn, and you can see where, and I put mine out through my spray. But I pull it sometimes too, and then I don't get it. But if I'm pushing it, yeah, you'll get it with iron. It's just the product. But I don't really care. 2 days go by and it's gone. So it's only where my mate Nick, obviously on the bowling green, the bowlers are coming the next day and it's just like going, hey, what's going on here? You know, so anything you can, you know, not let them know, the better. So that's why he fish mouses. And he's told me to do my lawn that way too, because obviously I make sprayers for a living. I could make myself one, but I never have because I'm just busy doing other stuff. So, but yeah, so I don't think the wheels walking over the product. It doesn't really matter. Like I've never had. You look at a lot of stuff. A lot of sprayers. Some are on the front, some are on the rear, but it doesn't really matter.
I messaged Ben Sims for some goss before this podcast. So for those who love lawn tips, Ben's using one of the BA pumps walk behind greens. He gave me nothing. Useless. No, but I mean, it just shows that it's actually working. But that was one of the pieces of the kit that you're talking about where it rolls over it. So I do wonder if it was just knobbly tires, the sheer weight of the machine. Maybe I'm eating too many zinger boxes. Maybe that's the problem, you know?
Were you putting iron out or what were you spraying?
Yeah, I pretty much always put iron out when I'm doing that because it's a Kaiku oval. Here's a little lawn tip for those people. They're like Kaiku is so hard to manage and it does take more work. But a lot of the time it's because they're fertilizing it like cooch. They're putting so much nitrogen out on a lawn that doesn't really need that much encouragement with the nitrogen. And so I'm definitely erring on the side of less nitrogen, more iron. So I just get color without too much growth, and then putting in like seaweeds and things like that. So you get your root growth, you get your healthier plant, and it works, you know. So I put a lot of iron out, and I have problems with that. And I was wondering, when you were mentioning those different nozzles, do you think that would help with the staining? I guess probably not. It's, you know, we're working out as we go, I guess.
Well, I would definitely put a set of air inducted nozzles in there so that your product actually gets to the target. As I said, 37% of your product's lost to the atmosphere. So, yeah.
And then when
it's gone.
Yeah,
down there.
You know, the volatilization, I put in that big word to make myself sound smart. But
that's a good one.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know as well. If you put down a urea-based liquid fertilizer, it's just a standard urea-based, it also loses about 30% to volatilization, which is just it breaking down and the nitrogen goes back into the atmosphere because most of the atmosphere is itself nitrogen. And so what you're telling me then is I'm losing 30% and then I'm losing 30% from my application. And then if I'm using a standard liquid nitrogen fertilizer, not a more expensive one, I'm also then losing 30% of what's left. So I've probably lost all up about half of my product from a cheap fertilizer and a cheap sprayer. I'm losing half my product. So there you go. Now, my next question is, how important are tank agitators? Does it really matter?
Well, a lot of products, it comes down to the product too, but a lot of fertilizers as such, they need agitation. So this is like our little bowling green sprayer, our lawn sprayer basically, has got an agitator in it. And for that reason, Matt, they do have a lot of products that require suspension. Again, that's hard to do with a 12-volt pump. It's hard to put out a rate and keep the bloody thing suspended. So with those bowling green sprays, we have an agitator in there, but it's got a tap on the handlebar that you flip between spray or agitate. So every time on a bowling green, most bowling greens, 1,500 square metres, they walk up one way, do a turn. So while they turn, they flick from spray to agitate. They don't turn the pump off or anything like that. It just goes flick, spray, agitate. So every turn, they agitate.
Yep.
Then they're back spraying. And there's a bit of bypass in there, but bypass isn't what you call agitation. Like agitation's got an agitator that goes in the tank, goes down the bottom of the tank, and it has a little jet in it. So all the fluid or pressure from the pump goes through that jet, and then it's got venturis in it that create like a suction, and it draws the tank in. So it'll turn over the tank in, a couple of minutes versus bypass from the pump, which is like when you're spraying, you've got a certain amount that's going back into the tank from the regulator. It could be, say, if it's a 13 litre minute pump and you've got a litre going back, So it's really only got a litre a minute going back to the tank.
Mhm.
So if it's a 70-litre tank, it's going to take 70 minutes to turn over that tank versus your little agitator being able to turn over, say, 20 litres in a minute.
Yep.
It'll take 3 minutes to turn over your tank. So
Is there such a thing as a manual agitator? I'm thinking in my head like a drill with a thing on the end.
old school sprayers used to have that, like old school orchard sprayers and stuff like that, because they use a lot of copper sulfate and
Yep.
stuff like that.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
used to have a manual agitator. I think some old Sylvans, you'll see them, they got a little flange in that in the tank and then a little shaft and like a propeller in there, and they used to run that. But it's not something we've ever done. That's old school sort of things, yeah.
So
Probably.
what would you think for someone who's got that, say they're going 50 to 200 litres, and we're not talking about you specifically. Maybe they've bought something already and they're just trying to work something out, and because it sounds like you're putting them in everything. But
yeah, not everything, but we put most of our largest sprayers in, or specific purpose sprayers. Our spot sprayers obviously don't have them. No.
Well, let me just put it this way:
But
I don't have an agitator on mine, right? But
you're asking the question is, how could I fit up an agitator to?
No. What I'm asking is because I feel like the thing with the stand-on mower is it's very jerky, right? And it kind of just sloshes around the tank for ages, right? Now, also,
Yeah.
it only takes me 30 minutes to empty the tank or something like that, depending on, how much I've put in it. So I'm kind of like, in that scenario, do you need it? I can also imagine that if you were doing like 1,000 litres and you're going very slowly at a very slow application rate, things would settle,
Yeah.
So it just, like in that scenario so it sounds like what you're saying is it's not 100% necessary, but it just depends on where you're at.
Yeah, it depends on the product. If it's a product that needs suspension, well, yes. But if it's a small tank and you're getting it out pretty quick, well, probably not. But like you said, if it's a larger tank, yeah. And like if you're putting in a number of different products into the tank as well, you want to be able to agitate it so that you can mix it up properly. So say again, I'm going back to our little bowling green spray, but that's the thing that will resonate with most of your blokes if they do spray a few lawns and stuff. You might put in 3 different things in the tank. Well, you want it to mix properly. So I always say to people, put 20 litres in the GK and then introduce your product from there, and then fill the rest up with water, and it turns it over quite good.
Yeah, that's what I do. I put my I put my hose in the actual tank with a nozzle on it. I wash it all after, and not for like dangerous chemicals, right? But liquid fertilizers, wetting agents, whatever. And you just put it on like a jet setting or something, and so fill out halfway, put the product in or so, and then just jet it around, and it does mix it. But not saying that I know. We already know that my knowledge is limited in all of this. One more thing, and then I want to talk about like what I can actually get from you guys, and you get the opportunity just to talk about your stuff. But trailer versus on deck, you've got a bunch of products that are tow behind trailers. Everything's included. You just hitch it on the back of an ATV or a gator. I'm sure you can make a mount for a ride-on lawnmower. This is the kind of thing that's really getting me interested, and this is probably what I should have gotten to start with, because you can get them with hose reels and booms and nozzleless booms and blah blah blah, get them sort of customized to you. But then you can also get an on deck solution. So for people who might have say, and we're not talking the massive ones, because some of them are huge. I'm talking sort of 100 200 litre in that ballpark, right? Somebody might go, well, I've got a ute and I've got a ride-on lawnmower, right? When should they put an on-deck solution on the back of their ute, right? And when should they get a tow-on, thing that they could probably hook up to their ride-on lawnmower? What situations would be beneficial for those?
Well, again, it's really, over the years, it's really come down to personal choice, to be honest. There's no better scenario. Like, a lot of people don't like towing something around, but a lot of people don't like lumping something in the back of their vehicle and out in that all the time, or in the back of a small ATV. So it's sort of a lot of people just like the trailer because it's there sitting there ready to go.
Yes.
There's no mucking around. You hook it up and off they go. Like they'll have their mower or their ATV wide ready to go because we make little switch boxes and that. You just set them up and you can leave them in your side by side, your ATV thing. And then when you want to hook up your trailer, well, it's there and you just go and off you go. So a lot of people like them for that because then they're sitting there ready to go, but they're not, on the back of their ute taking up room or in the back of the side by side taking up room.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, but other people like them in the back of the ute or on the back of their ATV side by side, whatever you want to call it, because it's a little bit more nimble. So if they are going around a lot of garden beds or something like that, and you're not wanting to, watch what the trailer's doing all the time, it's just on the back. You're not going to hit anything. So a lot of people in our game in the agricultural game, we sell heaps of those little ones for the back of the side by sides because they want to go along and do their fence line spraying and that.
Yep.
We set them up with little switches and that so that they can bloody spray the fence lines with the tip of their fingers. They can turn on and off little nozzles spraying out the side or just the boom at the back or both sides for doing a track or something like that. So
right,
yeah, we make some elaborate setups these days. But
I wanted to show one of those photos because you put up, you sent me a bunch of these photos, and I was looking at some of the controls, and I was like, man, this looks great. Like, let me just try and get something on the screen here.
yeah.
Like even this guy here, like, so how important is it for me in my sort of scenario? It's just personal consultation right now, isn't it? Other people have to be listening. But what are we measuring here, and what sort of person should be getting these kind of controls? Oh, I can't zoom in on this one very well. There we go. Controls on the front of the machine, thinking about all that kind of stuff.
Well, that one, I think we built that for a mob that was for us. It's like a soccer club or something like that in Melbourne, and they had a little rig that they were just spraying the soccer fields with. So that's got your foam marker on the left-hand side there, so they can flick from side to side, go up and back with their foam and mark where they're going.
Yep.
And then you've just got your boom controls on there, so it's got a gauge showing you what pressure the spray's at. And this is okay in this application because it's an outdoors or it's an open cab. I would never put a gauge inside a cab. We just usually would have them on the back on the sprayer, but in this case we made this perfectly specific for this job.
Yeah.
So it's got a gauge on there for old mate to see when he's cruising along, and then it's got a master on off, so that turns the whole boom off. Yep. And you've got your pressure control, so you can increase or decrease your pressure, which you don't really do on the go on that sort of situation. And then they've got 3 sections, so you can left, centre, and right boom. So that's how they usually.
You've also now. Do you guys do any of those GPS guides? Here we go.
This one.
Yes, look at me go. Now, here's another dumb idea, or could potentially be a stupid question. This is at Suncourt Stadium. We've had Matt Oliver on from Suncourt Stadium. Okay, do you know the app called Map My Run? Do you know that app?
Yeah.
I was like, I wonder if you could. I've never done it. I was like, I wonder if you could just put Map My Run on your phone. Obviously, it's not very accurate or technical, but at least if you just try to get some general idea of where you've been, it'd probably work. Just put your phone on a mount or something.
It would work all right. It would work all right if you had a big boom and we're going relatively slow. But most people that want to operate have got a small boom and still going relatively slow. But the accuracy of your phone versus a GPS, so that's somewhere within the vicinity of that one would be somewhere in the vicinity of say 10 to 20 centimeters, right, where your phone's it's like 5 or 10 meters, So
true.
That's the difference.
Anyway, I know that other people think that too because these are flipping expensive, right? How much does a GPS guide cost?
Oh, that little one's around $4,000.
Yeah, so it's like again in our industry, people are like, "Why would you spend $4,000? We can just use Map My Run." But you probably can't. That's why.
But it's horses for courses too. Sometimes you don't need it. Depends on how much you are doing, but and how accurate you want to be. Like we have another GPS system it's actually the rate controller for the sprayer, and that spray we built for Suncorp, that had an automatic rate controller on it, so that when you speed up or slow down, you punch in say 400 litres a hectare, because you are using high water rates too. The chemical's expensive, so you need to make sure you're putting out the correct rate to get the good results as well as not waste chemical. So you can punch in 400 litres a hectare, and if you speed up or slow down, it adjusts your rate to suit the speed that you're traveling.
Wow,
so.
That's fancy.
And automatically turns off. So if you say you went into Suncorp and you did a lap around the outside for your first spray and then started going up and back, it'll automatically turn on and off the boom sections as you've gone over that applied area, or when you come back into it unapplied, it turns them back on. So
that's so cool. People are smart. I had to get a GPS on my phone to track my speed, and then I know where my revs are on my mower, and then full batteries. So you've got your revs set. You just go pull them forward, and you know that's in the ballpark. I don't check it every time, but I know it's in the ballpark of speed. Within half a kilometre or something. But that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, man. So let's talk about what you guys make, and I will go back onto this one because now this has got we got pictures of your lawn in this, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Oh, there is. Yeah.
Where are they? Is this your lawn?
That's my joint. Yeah.
Well done. That looks schmicko. This one's a good one. You get a few different angles of it. For those watching, looks like it's cooch. Is that cooch?
Yeah, it's center. Yep.
Nice and
I love
low cut. Yeah. What are you cutting it with?
It's still on a mower. Yeah, I've got one of those a Rover 45, one of those
classic
old school red ones.
Yeah. Perfect for the home loan application. What you're doing there. Look, I love it that I love it when someone at their own house, like I talk to people on here, and they might be an expert, and you go home and they work so much in the industry they hate doing their own stuff. It's like the mechanic who never services his car, and I love it that your lawn looks fantastic. So this little walk behind unit, I'm gonna run through some scenarios for you of people who will be listening to this, and I know that the people who are left listening to this, because it's not going to be like a Joe Rogan episode where we've got 1 billion people still listening, but the ones who are so keen, I think right now, to go, okay, hold on a second. This is really interesting. I want to up my game. I want to get amazing results. So I want you to give me I'm going to run you through 3 different scenarios, which are probably the type of people who are listening to this. So one is a full-time school gardener, but could be relevant for someone working at a cemetery or a aged care facility. The other is a contractor who has kind of limited space because they're driving everything around on a trailer, right? So they can't store a massive bit of kit on site. And then the other one is a rural homeowner who is an absolute hobbyist. They love it. And I want you to, we'll run through them one by one. You have to remember everything. So I'm just giving people a heads up of what's coming. And I want you to give the BA pumps and sprayers solution for someone who's a little bit more budget conscious. Obviously, we know we don't want to cheap out now. We understand, why things are expensive, but also the solution for somebody who money is no problem. So you might end up buying 3 or 4 different bits of kit, but give people an idea of what you guys can actually offer, because there is 1,001 different combinations of things you could put together in theory, and it's still confusing and people still don't understand. But here we go. So the first scenario, we've got a full-time school gardener. They're listening to this. Full-time person on a large site. We're talking 10,000 to 30,000 square meters of lawn. Got a couple of garden beds, but we're mostly talking about lawn. And they do the full lawn care program. We control wetting agents, fertilizers, fungicides, all that sort of stuff. The challenge is they've got an oval and they've also got building surrounds. So some of the areas might only be 200 square meters, might be thin strips. Some of the areas, like the oval, might be 1.5 hectares, something like that. Let's go. What would you recommend for someone who's on a budget, so they might only need one machine, and what would you recommend for someone whose money is no object?
Yeah, well, it's sort of hard, but if you had money was no object, you'd need 2 sprayers.
Right.
You need a GK, one of those.
Walk behind?
And then a little trailer or a little slip-in one to go in the back of their utility vehicle. So a lot of guys at the schools will have a utility vehicle most of the time.
Yep.
So they can slip in one in the back and do their oval with that. And it's got a spot spray gun on it as well. So you can fish mouth to a certain extent with a standard spray gun with the right nozzle in it in areas where you can't get in. So you could get away with that versus having a GK, because you can, it is inefficient, which we know, but you can fish mouth areas with most products and still get reasonable results rather than doing nothing. But so, budget conscious, you might just get away with one machine, but if you had a bit more of a budget, a GK, the little pedestrian one, is definitely the go. Like people I sell them to, they love them. They love them, and we just sell multiple of them to guys. Someone's got one, and then the person they know's got one,
Yes.
and they've got one.
Word of mouth stuff.
Yeah, there's heaps over in WA. We've sold plenty.
Really?
There,
so like bowls, greens, golf courses, or a lot of hobbyists
and lawn contractors. Yeah, there's a few that have got them. Yeah, because I've got a dealer over there, and that's sold quite a few. So
the other thing we talked on the phone last week, which some of you listening may not be aware, but there are quite a few herbicides that some of them have changed, that they're not allowed to be sprayed on the back anymore. So you're actually not on label allowed to use a knapsack. You need some sort of walk behind. Now, I do know of people who literally will just get a battery knapsack, like for a tie in the lawn, and put it on a trolley, like a metal trolley. Some sprayer manufacturers make a little metal trolley, so they cover themselves for that. But this is only when you need 15 litres or something like that. So a lot of these products, they may be heading down that path, because I did talk to somebody who was a sales rep, and they were like, yeah, we're a little bit worried about that. So look, the GK would be a fantastic option for that. Now, can we get some ballpark prices? Obviously, it's going to change on what nozzles you get and what length your boom it is, and all that sort of stuff. But let's say a 200, so you're kind of talking a 200 litre tow behind unit with a reel and a boom, so you can do both sort of areas, and a strong enough pump. Can you give us a range of price that might be in for those who are interested?
Well, yeah, you can go from around the $3,500 mark on a 200 litre trailer with a 12 volt and probably a boom nozzle. Versus, you can add a bigger boom, you can add a bigger pump, and you can go probably up to 6,000 in that 200 litre range.
Mm-hmm.
I have a 400 litre one too that I sell quite a few to probably a decent school, decent sized school that they need to do a bit of work with if they've got a reasonable spray program and that. So they might get a 400 litre one, which you'll range from 5,000 up to about 8,000 depending on what you end up putting on it.
Well, I would say as well for those listening that if you look at their rates, like my flat part of my oval is 7,000 square meters, which is quite small, and I still need almost 200 litres. So if you had an oval that was 15, and this is on the lowest end of my spray stuff.
Yeah, you're putting it on a low rate still. Yeah.
Exactly. And most of my stuff I'm watering in, so it doesn't really matter what my spray rate is, right? But like if you're using certain products need a lot more water than that, and so you may need a 400 litre sprayer, because you might go, oh well, it's $3,000 more or whatever it ended up being, but the amount of time to keep refilling 200 litres, if you need to do that 5 times to get over the school, you've lost your money and wages in a year anyway, So you're kind of looking at that, and then the GK walk behind. What kind of ballpark are we talking at around for that?
They're around the $4,000 mark for a 75 litre 1.5 metre boom.
Mm-hmm.
That's with no foam marker, but then we can add a foam marker, and then the 75 with a 2 metre, and we can add a foam marker. So they range from 4 to 6 thereabouts, and you can add a spray gun on them too. Yeah,
I have a feeling that would be an option for someone who had a very small school. I worked at a very small school about 10 years ago, and they only had about 8,000, 9,000 square meters in total in the entire school. Maybe a little bit more, but it would take a long time to walk that oval, because it was probably 5,000 that oval was. But I guess if you were, I don't know, it might be worth it.
Well, you can spray a 1,500 square metre bowl and green in about 12 and a half minutes. So it would take that long.
No, it wouldn't. But the amount of filling up, because 5,000 square meters, you'd probably need to fill it up twice for a low application rate.
Well, maybe even 3 times, but it's not.
It's a 1 hour job.
it's better than nothing, you know, and that's what they end up having. They just don't do anything because they go, we've got nothing, and then it's, you know.
Yeah.
So a lot of them can find a budget, you know, get that in their budget.
Yep.
And you know, it's the gardener will get some results, you know. So like, oh shit, it's money well spent, you know, especially if you're waxing iron out and stuff like that, as you know,
All the time.
or I've listened to a few of your podcasts and you love Barricade, but if you put that product out, yeah, you get results and it ends up saving you at the end of the day.
Huge
it saves
amounts.
you money.
Yeah.
So,
let's move on to the next scenario. So let's say we've got a contractor. So very similar to what I do, right? I've got limited space, right? Especially if you're only driving a ute, right? If you got a small truck, but I would say 95, 99% of contractors have got utes, right? Maybe even a dual cab, so they don't have a lot of space on the back, right? And they've got a trailer. So the kind of options that they might be thinking, let's say, even if money wasn't an issue, they're still limited by space. So the kind of things they might go, I want an on deck with a very long reel, right? And so that I can say cover like just drive my ute around, and maybe 200 liters it fits, and they can still put some other stuff on the back. Or they might want a trailer that they can winch up and down a ramp onto the back of their ute or something like that. Or maybe they've got some space in the trailer. Or they may want the GK. So they're the kind of the options they might be thinking about. So where would you be? What scenario would each sort of fit? And, you know, these are people who are doing a variety of things. They're spraying fence lines maybe every now and then, you know, with glyphosate. And then maybe the next job, obviously they're rinsing out people, triple rinse, clean it out. Next job, they might want to do a barricade application on a front lawn, or they've got a commercial site that they've got to put some wetting agent down on. So full variety of services, limited by space. Cheap, expensive options.
Well, you know, you can do the 12-volt version with a reel on it, and you can put with the small 12-volt pump, the 6.8, you can put a long reel on there. You can put bloody 100 meters on it if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you can change spray guns in that too. So you can just put a flat fan nozzle on a spray gun if they wanted to do an application with a spray gun. You can do it. Like, it's not, you know, it's no different to using a bloody knapsack. Really, isn't it? You know,
yeah.
There's heaps of guys out there spraying with a knapsack. So you could do a 12-volt, you know, a couple of grand will get you a decent unit. You know, as I said, you could get one for a grand too, or $1,200 with 100-litre one that I have with a hose reel on it. Yeah, they only have a 15-metre hose reel, but it depends on what you're doing. You know, or you can have an engine drive version too and have, you know, unlimited. You're not limited to the rates that you're doing, and you know, you could put out lots of fertilizer and stuff with a bigger pump and stuff like that. But it just really depends on what you're doing and what your budget is. The GK is always hard because it is bigger, so they have to. A lot of guys plan their days where they'll go and spray for a day, so they go around and just spray. So they'll chuck it on, and that's what they're doing is just spraying.
Yep.
So obviously that's that 4 to 6 mark. But I probably shouldn't say it, but I do have a little one that I'm making, a little 30-litre one, which is going to be for types of guys like you and an enthusiast home gardener.
Yep.
Like me or like heaps of people out there.
Yeah.
Because the GK is a little bit too big, so it's a bit cumbersome for some things. Like, it was originally just made for bowling greens in it.
Yeah.
And it was originally a 50-litre, and then it stemmed into what it is today. Like, I stumbled across making that product.
Right.
Talk about it later on if you want, but yeah, so it's a little bit cumbersome. So I'm making a 30-litre one that's got a little folding. It'll end up spraying 1 metre. I've got a little prototype at my place that I've been mucking around with, and I've designed it and everything. I just haven't finished making it. We've been busy with a lot of other stuff, but I think it'll be a good product. And if I can sell it for around the $1,500 mark, because it's like everything, it's good quality. It's not made in China. It's made by us in our factory with all of our usual good quality products. So I'm not out there chasing massive volumes. I chase quality and repeatability with sales from people liking your product. So I reckon I can make one for $1,500. It'll be 30 litres. It'll be 1 metre boom. It'll have a battery on it that's rechargeable. And old mate should be able to go out and do. Well, I've got this little battery of mine. It's only 6 ampere, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done heaps of tanks without charging them. So I reckon you should be able to do like half a dozen tanks pretty easily.
Joe, I wonder if you could do a little bit of both. So let's say you had, because 30 litres is not big, right? 30 litres is 2 knapsacks. 2 knapsacks about 15. And that would be a lot more efficient than filling up 2 knapsacks, especially with, just getting out. I wonder if there's people doing a lot of spraying who are contractors. You got your big boom, so you're quick. If they could put on one of your, say a 100 or 200 litre tank with a 12 volt on the back, and they fill up their 30 for the tight access areas or bits where their boom doesn't reach. So you've got that option there where you could use the hose to meet the stuff that you can get easily, and then maybe there's certain areas that you can boom spray with your 30 litre, because 30 litres would cover a lot of area too, compared to a lot of what the commercial contractor is actually doing. We're not talking an oval now. We're talking a shop, like a small shop front, or like old Aunt Betty's backyard or something like that.
Well, like mine, John, I've got 400. Oh, mine's probably not the normal. I've got 400 square metres of Santa Ana at my joint, so 400 under turf. So it does 30 sweet at my joint, and it's not. There's more fluid, it's harder to push and all that type of stuff. And my joint's on a bit of a slope, so I'm conscious that I don't want it too big because people won't be able to push it. That's what GK. You can't push it on a lot of lawns. You can only go. It's got to be a well kept lawn with a bit of you can't push it on a spongy lawn. I don't like it. Well, you can do it, but it's hard work for old mate.
Are you able to put some sort of? It would obviously cost more, but have you thought about putting some sort of battery drive on it or something like that?
Yeah, I have. It's in the back of my mind, but I just don't know whether the market's gonna pay it. Like I had, some bloke years ago, or a couple of years ago, that was doing Parliament House.
Oh wow!
He wanted one because I think he's got a GK, but he wanted a battery one. And
battery.
Yeah, I've thought about it, but I don't know whether the market's going to how much it would end up costing, because there's a limit to where it'll go, and then people go, oh, it's not worth spending that on a pedestrian spray, So
exactly, I see where you're coming from, but I wonder if now, because even a lot of the interviews I've done with these battery brands as part of this series, they have a hell of a lot of new stuff coming out, like a lot of new stuff, and you might not need that much adaptation for, like I've got the Ego manager coming on this afternoon, and we've had Greenworks like we talked about before, and AEG, and just a few. There's more coming up, Pelink and stuff. But these sort of brands, they're actually trying to get into like little mini bikes and eskies or fridges, and I wonder if there will be a because they've got little like go-karts and stuff, and I wonder if they'll do little go-kart setups or something that you can add on to existing frames. And
it's probably an option.
If they do, it probably wouldn't be that much more expensive because you wouldn't have to do that much modification. It would just be a chain on a drive,
That's right. Obviously, my specialty is the spraying side of things, not that sort of drive technological sort of stuff in the drive set up with the batteries and that. It's not something that we're really focused on in our business. So there might be something out there that, and we probably would look to do is adapt to something that's already out there, because someone's already done the hard yards on that.
Exactly.
Because the golf courses, they would be interested in too, because we've got a golf course out there that's got about they've got about 8 of our units in, because they don't want compaction on the greens, so they go out and spray the greens. With just the GKs. So they'll send 2 blokes out, and they've got a batching unit, which is electric as well. We've done that for noise. So they go out there and they can spray early in the morning and make bugger all noise, because the batching unit that we've made is 12 volt, got a 12 volt pump on it, and they batch into the GKs, and then they go and spray the greens quietly as well. And they're using an electric vehicle to get there too, I think. So they'll make it anywhere.
Okay. Here's okay. If you make this, I want a commission. All right.
Oh, no,
Like,
it's already been thought about.
a couple
It's
of these
just,
T-Max will do me though. But what if you could get a sulky on the back of your GK and put a little electric go-kart motor on it? Because even if it was too powerful, it would have to have gears and stuff. It was too fast and too powerful to do greens, right? You could put the sulky on just for the sake of traveling between greens, and that would be so much fun. Probably all scary.
That Eco 250, that's what I told, I showed you that Eco 250.
Yeah, I've got a photo. I'll put it up on here when I find it.
Yeah, I told the young bloke when I made that for him, I said, buddy, just make up a little skateboard thing on the back that you see. And, it's self-propelled. So, that'd be sweet.
Here we go. I found it now. I'll chuck it on the screen. But
and this thing was a one-off that we did for a young bloke local here, and he's a contractor. The video's a bit grainy, but he wanted a sprayer of some sort for doing a big oval. So I knew he had one of my GKs, and I knew he had this little Eco 250 top dresser. So I said, bring that in, and I'll make a sprayer for you. So
yeah, well they're petrol. They've got plenty of guts in that Eco 250 engine there, driving everything. All right, mate. Well, the last scenario I want to run you through is very simply it's the hobbyist homeowner who is they're really interested in their own lawn. I changed the layout there. So they've got 1,000, 4,000 square meters in that ballpark range on a rural property, right? So rural hobbyist homeowner, because most hobbyists, they've got 100 square meters and a little knapsack's fine. They don't need anything more than that. But if you do have 1,000 or 4,000 square meters, there's a few things you might want to be doing. One is your lawn care stuff. 2 is your fire breaks, and 3 kind of spot spraying as well. And my feeling is that most of them would have a ride-on lawnmower, and so maybe not an ATV, depending on the size of the property. But if you've got one of those tractor-style ride-on lawnmowers or something like that, what option would you be offering to that person?
I don't have heaps with the smaller ride-ons. The bigger ride-ons, they'll tow around a 200 litre. No worries. And which we do sell plenty of them for that application. But a lot more of those people too that are on a rural property they love one of those side-by-sides. I don't know, they just love them.
Yep.
So they always have them. So we sell a lot of units to go in the back of them for doing their fence lines and stuff like that. And then some of those people like their lawns, but I don't know, you don't get heaps in a rural setting that do love their lawns as much as probably I do.
Not as much as we do.
They'll buy a little trailer or a little one to slip in the back of their side-by-side. It depends. If they're really looking after their turf, I sell a few GKs to people on with decent lawn on the property. Mainly because it's easy to use. That's probably it. A lot of the times I find if a lot of people go out there and don't spend money on a sprayer, because people hate spending money on sprayers, but they'll just buy a piece of crap, and it is a piece of crap, and they won't do any spraying. Where if you buy something decent, it's easy to use and it's good to use when you're doing, you'll do a lot more spraying. But you end up doing less spraying because you're doing it properly. So,
you're doing more spraying in that the job's actually getting done, but each job is taking less time because it's a better machine.
Yeah, that's right. And it's not a pain. Not a pain to do it because it works every time you use it.
Yeah.
You're not mucking around trying to get it working because you haven't got a suction filter on the pump or anything like that. So, yeah.
Well, mate, I've been having fun with this. What if people are wanting to get in contact, they want to purchase something, they want to learn more, see what some quotes or whatever, where would they go?
Well, we've got a dealer network around Australia, so you can jump on our website, which is bapumpsandsprayers.com.au. You can look on there, and we've got dealers in most regional centres right across the country, so we ship everywhere. We've got dealers down in Tassie, over in Perth, WA, around WA, everywhere. So you'll find us if you Google BA pumps and sprays. That's for sure. And or you can ring in here direct. You'll end up talking to one of the guys here, or me, or one of my sales guys. So yeah, we can definitely point you in the right direction if you're looking for something or need some ideas or anything like that. So yeah, we make a lot of different stuff. So yeah, a lot of it's based on agriculture. So we make linkage units and trail units for agriculture, but a lot of turf based products as well. I've just learnt the turf industry over the years from just making stuff for guys that are on golf courses and stuff like that. So yeah.
Well, awesome, mate. I really appreciate you coming on and giving so much free information away as well, on just like the silly things that we're doing. If nothing else, this is a great educational. I think a lot of people.
I hope so. I appreciate you asking me. It's good of you. So thank you.
And I do reckon you need to release that 30-litre one, because Ben Sims' audience and a lot of our audience, that's actually probably a really good fit. Especially, I'm thinking the contractor who's like filling up their 15-litre knapsack multiple times at the same job, right? They're thinking, a high quality one, not a cheapo. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Thanks so much.
All right. No dramas. Thank you.